Good afternoon, everyone. Let us stand and sing to our beloved Kuthumi, number 454. Please make your calls to him. Thank you. Please be seated and take your ashram ritual booklet out. We are turning to the ritual for holy work and transport so that we can give, the mantras for each of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, which are on page 43. We are only giving the mantra. We are not giving the rest of the section of each one. Let us take our Great Central Sun Ritual, page 25. Great Central Sun Ritual. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world, thou art life, and thy life is the light of my being. Therefore I am the true witness of thy light, for thou art the true light which lighteth every manifestation of the Father, Mother, God that cometh into the world. Thou art the Word who was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth in the Son, Jesus Christ. I am beholding the glory of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, who is also with me in my beloved holy Christ self. O mighty presence of God, I am in and behind the sun. I welcome thy light which floods all the earth, into my life, into my mind, into my spirit, into my soul. Radiate and blaze forth thy light. Break the bonds of darkness and superstition. Charge me with the great clearness of thy white fire radiance. I am thy child, and each day I shall become more of thy manifestation. I am that I am. I am the light of the world. 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 O thou cosmic Christ, thou the empowerment of my sonship through Jesus Christ, I am born again, not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but I am born of God. For my Lord hath said to me, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this?
And I have said to him,
Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. Make all light bearers of this world and cosmos one in the spirit of the great white brotherhood. We are one in thy mystical body of the cosmic Christ. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. In the name and in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, I am a son of God. I am come a light unto the world, that whosoever believeth on the cosmic Christ should not abide in darkness, but should have the light of life. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. We are the light of the world. Our ashram that is set on the hill of the Lord Morya El cannot be hid. Let us stand for our invocation. Lo, I am gratitude in action. Lo, I am gratitude in action. Lo, I am gratitude in action. In the name of the Goddess of Liberty, light, light, light. I send forth the light of the great central sun into the heart of every servant of God, worlds without end. I claim the matter cosmos for the victory of the Divine Mother Omega, and for the great light of Alpha in Omega, Omega in Alpha. O light, 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 descend from the great central sun. O light, expand our hearts, expand our chakras. Seal us in the power, wisdom, and love of Ratna Sambhava. O thou cosmic Buddha, O thou light of a universe, let thy cosmic egg seal us in this hour. O Ratna Sambhava, come forth as above, so below. I am the strengthening through the heart of Ratna Sambhava, the mighty ark, from this altar, from this heart, to the great central sun. I am strengthening now by the power of light, 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 and right action, right word, right motive, right desire, the God harmony of every keeper of the flame and light bearer. I command hosts of the Lord for the binding of the forces of anti-harmony. Blaze the light through, blaze the light through, blaze the light through. O mighty action of God harmony, fulfill thy law in the earth, and let God harmony judge the force of antichrist, of anti-harmony. Living light of the morning sun, come forth, O God, deliver us in this hour. There is no power but the power of the Almighty One. O thou Almighty One, I am that I am, Elohim. Thou art God, and only God, and there is but one God, and all lesser gods of idolatry and the idolatrous human creation go down, go down, go down before the living presence of the 5 cosmic Buddhas. We bow before thy light, Vairochana, Akshobhya, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, Amoga Siddhi. O thou, the integration of the word and the work, Vajra Sattva, come forth now for the sealing of hearts and the stabilization of the increase of light in our temples. We thank thee, O God. We thank thee, El Morya, Lord Lanto, Paul the Venetian, Serapis Bey, Hilarion, Nada, Saint Germain, for being our Chohans of the rays. We thank you, Maha Chohan, for thy blessed Holy Spirit with us. In the light of victory, we go forth in the name of the Holy One of God. YOD HE VAU HE, 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 YOD HE VAU HE. Holiness unto the Lord, holiness unto the Lord, holiness unto the Lord, holiness unto the Lord. Holiness unto the Lord, 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 holiness unto the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, in the name of the Divine Mother, Amen. Let us take decree number 8. We come before the altar of the Lord God this day to celebrate his light, to pour forth gratitude of such fervor and intensity as will reach the great central sun, for the presence of Ratnasambhava and all the great beings of light. Therefore we call forth light, and as soon as we call it forth and we receive it, we send it to God in gratitude. Gratitude is a very important action. Goddess of Liberty says, immigration means I am gratitude in action. Therefore, I am immigrating. I come to the promised land. I come to the door of the Temple of the Sun. I come to Atlantis revisited. And because I am God gratitude in action, I may come and be born or be naturalized on this land consecrated to the realization of the I am light. Together. I am light within, without. Expand, expand, and forever expand. Field of consciousness within, without. Absorb God's light and then command. Light of God to forever expand. Fill the world, the land, the air, the sea and sky and everywhere with awareness, for I am there, sharing God in joyous prayer. Beyond the earth in outer space, expand the power of cosmic grace. Our God is there and everywhere, and where I am, O thou art too, to increase awareness of thy truth and show me in my I am I, the holy beauty of the sky. I see thy light of diamond hue, sparkling, shining through and through the pores of self in body large, the macrocosmic universe. I am with thee, O God, I see the light expand as past to thee. The power flows, my being glows, and Christ within without me shows. I am the way to peace and power, thy spirit makes me one this hour. O God, demand and now command thy presence in our holy band of devotees of heaven's grace. Show me, command me to take my place. In freedom's band I'll ever stand, by victory's power I wake this hour, to feel that flow of power. Blaze right through me, light of God, spiral nebulae, sons of light. Blaze right through me, truth of God, fill my mind with great delight. I am thy grace, manifest here, thy perfect love is shining clear. Command thy selfhood to be mine, expand, expand in heaven's name. Command my soul to be thy flame, expand, expand, O love divine. I am God, gratitude in action. 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 I would like to summarize for you the beginning of chapter 10. In this chapter, Prince Menax, who is the premier and the Rai's chief advisor, offers Zalem in his 4th year of schooling the position of Secretary of Records. This position would bring him in close contact with the Rai and all of the princes. Menax reveals that he has followed Zalem's student career and has been behind many opportunities that Zalem has received in his studies. Menax asks Zalem to go on a mission into a far country during his upcoming vacation from school. Zalem agrees and provides a prologue to the account of his journey by describing Necropan, which is Egypt, as well as the land he will visit, that of the Suernis, now called Hindustan. These were the most civilized nations not under the rule of Atlantis at the time of our story. We go now to page 105, the bottom paragraph. When nations seek to make religion absolutely dominant in their affairs, the result is sure to be fraught with disaster. The theocratic policy of the Israelites was a case in point, and as the reader will ere long perceive, Suernis and Necropan were examples yet earlier in the history of the world. And the reason is not that religion is a failure. The force of this record of my life must convey the truth that I think nothing is better than pure religion undefiled. No, the reason why a successful theocracy cannot permanently thrive is that the attention of the promoters must be given to things spiritual to render the spiritual successful, and the things of God's kingdom can never be the things of earth. Not at least until man is fully developed in his 6th or psychic principle, has become purified by the fire of the Spirit from all taint of animality. It is precisely because the world is not ready for a theocracy, and that we do not have one in this country, that the Buddha has established his Sangha and Christ his communities and holy orders. If we wish to live according to the rules of God and bring the kingdom of God into manifestation, that is his consciousness, and bring the heaven into the physical plane, that is bringing the etheric down to this level, then we must start with cells like this community, where a group of people can decide to come together, submit themselves to God's laws and the rules of order of a particular community, pursue a spiritual path, and demonstrate that it can be done. And so as more and more of these cells, these amethyst jewels, come about upon the planet, we will see that one day, as drops of water on the table, they will merge as one, and the planet will be in a golden age, and we will have rulers and representatives that are Christed ones. Then the things of heaven will become the things of this world. Suernis and Necropan were possessed of a civilization which I now perceive to have been peer with our own, though so different. But because it possessed scarcely a salient point in common with that of Poseid, therefore the people of the latter country regarded it with a sort of scorn when discussing it amongst themselves. But they were very respectful in their demeanor towards these people for reasons that shall presently appear. The differences in the two coeval civilizations lay in the fact that while Poseidon tended to the cultivation of the mechanical arts, to sciences having to do with material things, and were content to accept without question the religion of their ancestors, the Suerni and Necropani paid little heed to anything not mainly occult and of religious significance. Practical principles truly, occult laws having a bearing on materiality. But nonetheless, were they careless of material objects except in so far as the proper maintenance of life was concerned. Their rule of life was summed in the principle of taking no heed of the life about them, but neglecting the present they strove after the future. The vital principle of Poseidon was to extend her dominion over natural things. There were those who philosophized over the spirit of the times, Poseidon theorists, and these drew a prognostic picture of Atlantean destiny. They pointed out the fact that our splendid physical triumphs, our arts, sciences, and progress absolutely depended on the utilization of occult power drawn down from the night side of nature. Then this fact was put side by side with the fact that the mysterious powers of the Suerni and the Necropani owed their existence to this same occult realm, and the conclusion was that in time we also would grow careless of material progress and devote our energy to occult studies. Their forebodings were extremely gloomy in consequence, yet while the people listened respectfully, the failure of these prophets to suggest a remedy rendered them in some degree objects of secret contempt. Anyone who shall find fault with an existing state of affairs and be confessedly unable to substitute a better is sure to meet with public ridicule. My commentary on these three nations is that Atlantis then, and Atlantis revisited today in the United States, has a destiny of outpicturing the flame of Omega, the matter cosmos and the mater realization of the God flame. And so in as far as, and in so much as their science and their technology and their inventions were laid upon the altar of the Divine Mother, to the end that free from drudgery, people might pursue a spiritual life and pursue that adeptship which was theirs to have, the same as the Suernis and the Necropanis, then that is a lawful manifestation. That science, that technology, spacecraft, and all the heights of science to which we could go. We've seen in many such civilizations, in the records of them in Akasha, that when people have so much given to them of such conveniences and of this technology, instead of taking the opportunity to pursue the spiritual path, they go into the indulgences of the squandering of the sacred fire in any and all of the chakras, the depletion, therefore, of the light in the temple, the inability, consequently, to identify with the path of personal Christhood, and they become degenerate. This happened on Hedron, the planet closest to the sun, which was destroyed. It is now the asteroid belt closest to the sun. And many of the evolutions of that planet are re-embodied on Earth, and theirs was a cult of hedon, of pleasure, and it has gone the same way in many other civilizations, such as Maldek. The laggards from that destroyed planet, the remains being between Mars and Jupiter, have re-embodied upon Earth to continue a materialistic civilization without endowing it with the God flame of the Mother Omega, and without taking that cradle as a springboard to the victory of the Christ flame. In fact, in many circles we see the position of Christ denied altogether, east and west. So, alas, this is what has happened to the United States in our century. exactly this pattern. And it is most tragic because the purpose of this book was that it might be written so that the United States, being the reincarnated Atlanteans, could avert the same calamity, the same end that Atlantis suffered. So we do not see that the publication of this book, as far as it has gone in the last century, has really turned the tide in our nation. And so as we read about it and we see the ultimate outcome of Atlantis, we cannot help but mourn for the coming events which are projecting themselves already on the screen of our nation, simply because the people, many people, are in the same state of degeneracy. What is amazing about the United States is that you have here people who have a great spiritual path and a great communion with God, side by side with those who have almost degenerated to the animal level in their mentality and in their activities. We, as Poseidon, knew that the mysterious nations across the waters were possessed of abilities which virtually dwarfed our attainments, such as our power to traverse the aerial or marine depths, or swift cars, our subsurface sea ships. No, they did not boast such conveniences, but they had no need of them to carry on the course of their lives, and therefore, as we supposed, no desire for such apparatus. Perhaps our scorn was more affected than real, for in our more sober thought we acknowledge with no small admiration their supremacy. What though we could speak with and see and hear and be seen by those with whom we wish to communicate, and this at any distance and without wires, but over the magnetic currents of the globe? Truly, we never knew the pangs of separation from our friends. We could attend to the demands of commerce and transport our armies in war times with a dispatch which could pass around the world in a day. All this as long as our mechanical and electrical contrivances were at hand. But what availed all this splendid ability? Shut one of the most learned Zioqui in a dungeon, and all his knowledge would be as naught. He could not, deprived in such a way of implements or agencies, hope to see, to hear, or to escape without external aid. His marvelous capabilities were dependent upon the creation of his intellect. Not so with the Suern or with Necropan. How to hinder one of these people no Paisada knew. Shut in a dungeon, he would arise and go forth like a Saul of Tarsus. He could see to any distance, and this without a name. Hear equally without a name. Go through the midst of foes and be seen by none of them. What then availed our attainments if opposed to those of Suernis and Necropan? Of what use are instruments of war even against such a people, a single man of whom, looking with eyes wherein glittered the terrible light of a willpower exerted to hurl in retribution the unseen forces of the night side, could cause our foemen to wither as green leaves before the hot breath of fire? Were missiles of value here, of use, when the person at whom they were aimed could arrest them in their lightning path and make them fall as thistle down at his feet? What even was the value of explosives more awful than nitroglycerin dropped from Velks posed miles above in the blue vault of heaven? None whatever, for the enemy, with prescient gaze and perfect control of night-side forces we knew not of, could arrest the falling destroyer, and instead of suffering harm, could annihilate that high ship and its living load. A burned child fears the fire, and in times past we had sought to conquer these nations and failed disastrously. Repulse was all they sought to effect, and successful over us in this, we had been left to go in peace. Now, the very purpose of technology is intended for what we were talking about yesterday, as we take medications to deal with diseases that are karma. And so we get a reprieve, we get an extension of time. So when you have all the means to do these things, the logical conclusion you should have is exactly what you are reading here. These means of conveyance, this technology, this nuclear energy is at my disposal and at my use, so that I can spend my life figuring out how to draw forth that same power from the God flame within and to master it. So science and technology are a form of mastery, and they should presage the day when all these things are within. We are only too well aware today of what would happen to civilization if there were a war between the superpowers. We realize what a setback it would be, and all of the conveniences of technology and science that we would not have. If the war were great enough and damaging enough, God forbid, we could be retrogressed a half a century, 2, 3 centuries, just by such a war, because the people in the last 500 years since the discovery of this nation have not concentrated on that inner God mastery and God flame. Why? Because they have brought back with them the Atlantean karma of materialism and the Atlantean dharma of the material or mater realization of the God flame. Yes, it is ours to produce all that we have produced. Yes, it is ours to endow it with a flame and then to realize that flame and that attainment within. I pray that we will recall that a number of years ago we were concentrating on balancing the karma of Atlantis. It is time to take this up again, because a large part of the 25,800 year cycle that we are speaking of, the karma was made on Atlantis. And so that is the karma we don't want to see outplayed, but alas, we are seeing outplayed. We are seeing it today in our nation. Atlantean mentality, Atlantean attitudes of the degenerate days. So it is quite something to contemplate that we have been with Jesus that long, for all of these cycles, as he would demonstrate to us in each of the 2150 years of time, demonstrating the Christ under each of the signs of the zodiac. And of course, that was our assignment in these 12 cycles, to realize our Christhood in each of those 12 signs, so that we could come together in the end and put it all together. Put it all together. So when he says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, you can see it means more than he is the manifestation of the Father, Mother, God. But he was present for the initiation that was to be given to all of us in this 25,800 years, and he is present in the ending. So in this particular course, we are getting accustomed to the idea that we have been civilized and functioning in civilized societies and even in golden ages. Perhaps it may not be true with finality for every single person in this room, but the likelihood is great that we have been actually re-embodying all of that time. And so when we look at ourselves today, we see our attainments and accomplishments, and we see what we would rather not see of those things that are lacking. And a sense of that time is important. It's important to stop a moment and think about, well, what have I really been doing for 25,800 years? And remembering that somewhere, somehow, there's always been a mystery school. Even if it was remote, these mystery schools could be contacted out of the body under teachers. And in many of the civilizations, the temples were open to the full height of having the flame visible and having adepts and unascended masters and high priests at their altars. So we've had the example of all of this, which is why we are called back again to this same teaching of God. So we've had the option many, many times in the past to choose the path of the ascension, to say, all right, I'm going to have done with all these things that I've done over and 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 over again. You couldn't say it enough times to even say it once for every year of all those years, right? You'd be sitting here all day. And so the temptation of one more round has obviously been bought by a lot of those who are here, because we're either here because we didn't make it, or we're here because we volunteered to come and teach those who lagged behind. So one of the two. And we might as well assume the worst and therefore do the best, as is also always my policy, to be sure we make it. But as you assess your goal-fittedness And as you are actually planning the rest of your life, it's important to think about how many lives God has given to us and to you. And I always like to remind people, of the phrase, the sun also rises. We take for granted that the sun will rise, the seasons will remain, the earth will be in her courses, there will be a civilization. It doesn't really matter whether we ascend or not. We can come around again. We have so many times before. But God teaches us that we should never assume that all things will always continue as they were. And we should count the day we are living in as a supreme and maximum opportunity, especially with this unique intercession of the Great White Brotherhood. When you realize the great light, the great teaching, the great presence, the energizing of our beings with the resurrection flame, all that we receive in the presence of a dictation, no matter what the Master is saying, just being in the presence of a Master who will dictate and who is anchoring the light in our beings. When we realize what that does for us by comparison to periods of time when we are not having dictations, which are intended to be a time when we increase our light by our effort, we have to remember that this community is surely what it is by the divine intercession of the Brotherhood, by the dispensation of the Ascended Masters being able to give us this teaching and these dictations. And by a like token, we should remember that this is not guaranteed either. And when we look at ourselves in a period of being absent from the altar or not receiving dictations and a time when we do receive them, there is simply no comparison to the help, to the assistance, to the increase of light we receive. And so my feeling about this situation is that it is important that we internalize the message of the dictations, the teachings of them, and live a sacrificial life, no matter what the botheration, no matter what the burden, to just doggedly push through it at the same time that we are determined to prove our Christhood and overcome all resistance to that path. Because, and this is the big because why we should do it, not for ourselves, though we will benefit, but because we want to see the continuity of the mission and the dispensation. We want to see it for our children. We want to know that when they are in need of that same comfort, there will be a messenger, there will be a continuity of the word, and they will not be left to have to read it in books and perform a lot of decrees and meditations to draw down that light. And personally, I don't know how any of us could draw down that light. We of our own selves cannot produce the light that comes in a dictation. We can decree all day, and a great light is released. But enter an ascended master or a cosmic being like Ratnasambhava by dispensation from God for merit of keepers of the flame, for merit of light bearers, because they have earned it. Remember, this is the pay-as-you-go period of history. So you can conclude that much of this is by grace, and much of this is by merit. And when you realize that, we cannot turn on that faucet. We cannot turn on that faucet. We could weep and wail for a century. And if God did not decide to release to us His teaching, His light, His initiation, His transfer of light, we could not produce it. Don't look at me, because I can't produce it. It's totally impossible for me to take a dictation, for me to produce a dictation, for me to release light, period, unless God released it through me. And God decides that. And we always have to remember, that is why I began this service with gratitude today, that we are profoundly grateful to realize that God makes a decision to give us these gifts. He's not obligated to do so. He's not required to do so. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to send His sons, the Ascended Masters, to us. They don't have to give up their ongoing cosmic attainment to tarry with planet Earth. All these things we must remember, that we are supremely blessed, and if we are grateful, we will want all those coming after us to be similarly blessed. And therefore we know that diligence is in the path is the price we must pay for this continuity. And there are just some souls who don't happen to be in embodiment today. I can assure you that they wish very much that they were in embodiment. But their time will come, and when it does come, all the things we have today, we must secure. We must secure them for those souls. Those souls are your children, your dearest friends, your brothers, your sisters, your twin flames, your soulmates. They're not non-entities. They're not nobody that you know. You know them all. We know them all. So I am very, very grateful for your presence here today. And I am grateful for your ability to understand these teachings and to assimilate them and to carry them and to live them and raise them as a banner of Maitreya and the banner of the World Mother, because that will be the continuity that gives hope to the Ascended Masters and to the coming of that golden age of Aquarius. So as we read this book, we realize that for ingratitude, Atlantis came to an end. And you can talk about everything else that happened on Atlantis, but it boils down to that one failure, the failure to give gratitude to God for all that they had, and therefore to respect the gifts, to honor the gifts, to honor God. When you are grateful, the response in action is all of this. You carefully take care of the gift, and you acknowledge the giver, and you have that sense, that ongoing sense of communion with your Lord who has produced all of this magnificent civilization. As the years stretched into centuries, our ways likewise became those of defense only, never offensive anymore. And owing to this change on the part of Poseid, friendly relations arose between the three nations. Atla had learned at last so much of the secret as to wield magnetic forces for the destruction of its foes, and had dispensed with missiles, projectiles, and explosives as agents of defense. But the knowledge of the Suerni was still greater because our magnetic destroyers spread death only over restricted areas circumjacent to the operator. Theirs operated at any desired point, however distant. Ours struck indiscriminately at all things in the fated district, at things inanimate as well as animate, at men, whether foes or friends, at animals, at trees, all were doomed. Their agencies went out under control and struck at the heart of the opposing force, not destroying life unnecessarily, nor even molesting any of the enemy except the generals and directors of their forces. Of all these facts concerning the Suerni I had long before learned. Prince Menax asked me that I oblige him by going on a mission to that people. I had never seen the land of Suern, and having a desire to do so, felt well pleased that it was to be gratified. After consenting to do as requested, I asked the prince concerning the proposed duty, saying, "If Zoroastika will tell his son what is required, he will satisfy a growing curiosity." "Even so will I do," answered the prince. "It is desired to send unto the Rai of Suern a present in acknowledgement of certain gifts sent by him to Rai Wallen. Well, there can be but small doubt that these gifts were sent to induce our acceptance of 70 women, prisoners of war who seem to be much in the way of Rai Ernan of Suern. Nevertheless, we cannot regard it as necessary to throw us a sop. And while the women will be allowed to remain or go whither they will, so that they go not where forbidden by Suern, we choose to regard the gift of gems and of gold as a gift, and make due return for it. So saith the council in quorum assembled. It seems that these women are members of certain strong forces of foolish invaders whose country lies far to the west of Suern. These people very unwisely made war upon the terrible Suerni. They had never experienced nor exerted the wrath wherein Inkle arms his children of Suern, a wrath which moweth its foes as the scythe of the reaper layeth the grass. Now Ernan hath a fertile country, and these ignorant savages long to possess it, wherefore they sent unto the Rai of Suern a challenge of war. To this Ernan replied that he would not make fight, that those who sought him with spears and with bows and came arrayed in armor would find him, and therefore be sorrowful, inasmuch as Yahuwah, as the Suerni are pleased to name him, whom we call Inkle, would protect him and his people of Suern, and this without strife and bloodshed. So Yehovah is, Yahweh is I am that I am. And these peoples are related to the tribes of light bearers of Sanat Kumara who were in Suern. Thereupon the barbarians returned derisive language and declared that they would come upon his land and destroy his people with the sword. So they gathered a numerous army, even 10,000 fighting men, and many camp followers, and these, led by a dauntless Astiki, swept east by south to devastate the realm of Suern. But wait, there is in this room one who can doubtless tell more than I, and tell it better. Malzis, addressing his body servant, conduct hither yon fair stranger. Malzis, obeying, the foreign woman whom I had seen as I entered the apartment of the prince, arose in an easy, graceful manner which commanded my admiration. Arranging her attire in a not at all hasty way, quite in fact the reverse of one obeying a superior, she approached Menax. Arising deferentially, the prince said, "Lady, art thou minded to recount to me that which thou hast told to my sovereign? I know that thy narration is vastly interesting." During these remarks, the stranger had looked not at the prince, but at me. Her eyes had been riveted on my face, not boldly, but intently, though obviously quite unaware of the fixity of her gaze. Nonetheless, there was such a magnetic power in it that I was compelled to look away, strangely abashed by the glance, but feeling that yet it followed me, although I saw it not. It occurred to me that the fact of the lady's reply being couched in the Poseid language was indicative of her possession of a good education. "If Astika," said she, "it be a pleasure to thee that I do this that thou asked, it is also one to me. It is also much of a pleasure to me to repeat it to the youth thou favorest. I would, however, that the maid thy daughter were not here," she added, sotto voce, with a glance of antagonism toward Anzime, who sat near us, engaged in perusing a book, apparently, but as I fancied, not in reality. This jealous undertone was not heard by Menax, though Anzime heard it, and presently arose and left the apartment in consequence. This action I regretted, and the cause of it I resented, as the Saldu quickly saw, and because of it bit her lip with vexation. "It cannot be agreeable to stand. Wilt thou seat thyself at my right hand, and thou, Zalim, change thy seat also, and be at my left," said Menax, reseating himself on the divan. When this arrangement had been made, we were ready to listen to the recital. At this moment, the valet, Malzis, respectfully approached, and being asked his wish, said, "It is the desire of thine officers and of the ladies of the Astikithlon to be also present at the narration. Their wish is granted. Bring also the name, and place it near us, that the editor of records may take account too." Availing themselves of his permission, the petitioners were soon grouped around us. Some on low seats, others high officers, more familiar with their prince, stretched themselves on the side and elbow in front of Menax upon rich velvet rugs on the marble floor. Chapter 11, the Recital. "Malzis," said the prince, "some spiced wine for us." In the enjoyment of this truly refreshing because unfermented beverage, we listened to the following thrilling narrative. "Thou art, I think, acquainted with my native country, since thou hast had commercial intercourse with the Sald nation. All here have likewise heard of how our ruler sent a great army against the terrible Suerni. Ah, how little we knew of those people," she exclaimed, clasping her small patrician hands in an agony of terrified retrospection. 80,000 warriors had my father, the chief, under his command. 1/2 as many more were followers of the camp. Our cavalry was our pride, veterans tried and true, and so lustful after blood. Such splendid armament had we, glittering spears and lances. Oh, a wondrous array of valiant men. At this eulogy of such primitive weapons, her listeners were unable to repress a shadowy smile. For a moment this seemed to disconcert the princess, but not for long, for she continued, "In this splendid, powerful fashion, how I love power. We came, taking loot as we proceeded toward the Suern city. When we arrived near it after many days, we could not see it, as it was in a lowland, but we felt assured of an easy victory, since captives whom we took informed us that no walls or like defenses existed, and that no army was gathered to meet us. Indeed, we nowhere found walled towns in all Suern, nor met with resistance, hence had spilled no blood, but contented ourselves with torture of the captives by way of amusement, ere we set them free. Horrible, muttered Menax under his breath, heartless barbarians. What saidst thou, my lord? Asked the girl quickly. Nothing, my lady, nothing. I but thought of the splendid march of the Saldean host. Though seemingly somewhat doubtful of the accuracy of this statement, the Saldu nevertheless continued her recital. Arrived, as I have said, we stayed our march on the brink of a shallow but wide defile, wherein the Rai was so unwarlike and unwise as to have his capital, and sent a messenger to announce our errand and offer him favorable terms of war. In answer, there came with our flag-bearer a solitary, unarmed old man. Elderly is a better word. He was tall, erect as a soldier, and had a dignity of mien that made him splendid to look upon. Aye, he looked as power incarnate. I ought to hate him, but he is powerful, and I cannot choose but love him. If he were younger, I would woo him to be my mate. At this unexpected remark, we looked at the fair speaker in amazement, not unmingled with other emotions, while Prince Menax asked, Astiku, hear I aright? Woo a man? Is it customary amongst thy people to give unto woman the love-making? I had thought myself versed in the customs of every nation, ancient and modern, yet knew not this fact. However strange things are to be expected of, well, a race which has but numbers to entitle it to recognition at the hands of people like the Poseidon. Why not be frank, Zoastika? Why not say that thou thinkest that civilized nations like thine consider such a race as the Saldi beneath them, so far that even their customs are well nigh unknown to thee? Prince Menax flushed deeply in ashamed confusion, for he was unaccustomed to prevarication, and replied, Candor is best, I admit, but I desired to avoid wounding my feelings, thy feelings, Astika. With a ringing laugh full of amusement, the Astiki said, Zoastika, allow me to tell thee that in Sald either sex is free to woo its chosen one. Why not? It is sensible, methinks. I shall follow our custom in this respect if chance ever presents. My chosen one must be pleasing to look upon, and must be courageous like unto the lion of the desert, yea, even the deserts whence he came unto the continent of Suernota. Ah me, yes, if chance offers, she reiterated with a little sigh. At length she resumed wearily, sadly, The Astika, my father, chief of our armies, said to this grand old man, What saith thy ruler? He saith, Bid this stranger depart, lest my wrath awake, for lo, I shall smite him if he obey me not. Terrible is mine anger. What ho, and his army? I have seen none, said my father with the laugh of a veteran to whom despised resistance is offered. Chief, said the envoy in a low, earnest tone, thou hadst best depart. I am that Rai, and his army also. Leave this land now. Soon thou canst not. Go, I implore thee. Thou, the Rai? Rash man, I tell thee that when the sun hath moved one other sign, that thy courage shall not save thee, unless thou wilt now return and collect thine army. Else will I then send thy head to thy people. There is but this option. After that length of time I will strike and sack thy city. Nay, fear not now for thy personal safety. I cannot hurt an unarmed foeman. Go in peace, and by the morning I will attack thee and thy army. I must have a worthy foe. In myself is a worthy foe. Hast thou never heard of the Suernis? Yes, and thou hast not believed? Oh, it is true. Go, I entreat thee, while yet thou canst do so in safety. Foolish man, said the chief, this thine ultimatum? Then be it so. Stand aside. I go not away, but forward. Then he called unto the captains of the legions and commanded, Forward, march to conquer. Withhold that order one moment. I would ask a question, said the Rai. Agreeably to this request, our men, who had sprung to place at the word, were now halted with arms at rest. In the very front ranks of the Saldean army, as it stood on the little eminence overlooking the Suern capital and the great river flowing near, was the prime flower of our host. Veterans they were, tried and true, men of giant stature, 2,000 strong, leaders of the men less seasoned. I shall never forget how grand looked that array. No, never. So strong, the very mane of our lion power, every man able to carry an ox on his back. The sun was caught on their spears in a glorious blaze of light. Looking upon these men, the Suernis said, Astika, are not these thy best men? Aye. They are the ones of whom it hath been told me that they tortured my people merely for amusement. And they called them cowards, saying that men who would not resist, to them should they serve death, and they did murder a few of my subjects. I deny it not, said my father. Thinkest thou, Astika, that this was right? Are not men who glory in shedding blood worthy of death? Possibly. If so, what matter? Perchance thou wouldst have me punish them for such actions, said my father scornfully. Even so, Astika, and thereafter depart hence. Aye, that will I. 'Tis a good jest, yet have I not humor for jesting. And thou wilt not go, though I say to remain is death. Nay, cease thy drivel, I weary of it. Astika, I am sorrowful, but be it as thou wilt. Thou hast been warned to leave. Thou hast heard of the power of the Suern and believed not, but now feel it. With these words the Rai swept his outpointing index finger over the place where stood our pride, the splendid 2,000. His lips moved, and I barely heard the low-spoken words, Yehovah, strengthen my weakness. So dieth stubborn guilt. What then befell so filled all spectators with horror, so wrought upon their superstition, that for full 5 minutes after, scarce a sound was heard. Of all those veteran warriors, not one was left alive. At the gesture of the Suernis, their heads fell forward, their grasp was loosed on their spears, and they fell as drunken men to the earth. Not a sound save that of their precipitation, not a struggle. Death had come to them as it comes to those whose hearts stop pulsing. Ah, what frightful power hast thou, Suernis! For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast, and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. Sennacherib was unknown then. The Salda princess knew not of the poem, but we do, my reader, thou and I, that is enough. When describing the action of the Rai of Suern, the princess had risen to her feet from her place by the side of Menax, simulating at the same time the fatal gesture of Ernan of Suern. So apt had been this mimicry that the group of listeners on our left had involuntarily cowered as her arms swept over their heads. The Saldu noticed them shrink, and her lip curled with scorn. Cowards, she muttered. A Poseida overheard the words, and his cheek flushed as he said, Nay, Astiku, not cowards. Consider our involuntary shrinking as a compliment to thy descriptive powers. She smiled and said, Perhaps so. Then, overcome by her apostrophe to the dread strength of Yehovah, as invoked by Ernan, a strength which even proud Atla feared, she sank back in her seat weeping. A little wine revived her, and the narration was resumed. After the horrible silence that fell on all who had witnessed the awful sight, the women, wives, and daughters of the higher officers began shrieking in affright. Many of our men, as soon as they could realize that the stories they had heard and discredited were no idle tales, fell to the earth in an agony of puling terror. Ah, then could ye have heard supplications to all the gods, great and small, in whom our people place trust. Ha ha, laughed the princess bitterly, contemptuously, appealing to gods of wood and metal for protection against such awful power. For, since I may not live in Suern, being banished, I would not live again in the land of my nativity. I want no more of people who idolize insentient objects and defy them. No, Astika, she said in answer to a question from Menax. I never worshipped idols. Most of our people do, but not all. I have not proved an apostate. But I do worship power. I ought to hate Ernan of Suern, but I do not. Indeed, I would, if permitted, live in his presence and idolize his wondrous strength, which works death to his enemies. Not so permitted, I would rather remain with thy people, who are a goodly race, and if not equal to the Suerni, are yet better and more powerful than mine own. Ah, far more so. My father knew better than to imagine this some trick of a wily people, knew now after this bitter lesson that the reputation accorded them by travelers was no idle fabrication of wonder-mongers. But he did not cringe before the Rai. He was too proud-spirited for that. While we gazed stupefied on the awful scene of death, another and not less frightful but more ghastly thing happened. We that were alive, all our host except the 2,000, stood between our dead and the river west of the city. Rai Ernan bowed his head and prayed. What dire alarm that action caused our people, and I heard him say, Lord, do this thing for thy servant, I beseech thee. Then as I gazed on the victims, I saw them arise one by one, and gather up each his spear and shield and helmet. Thereafter in little irregular squads they marched towards us, toward me, O my God, and passed on to the river. As they passed, I saw that their eyes were half closed and glazed in death. The movement of their limbs was mechanical. They walked as if hung on wires, and their armor clanked and clanged in a horrid mocking ring. As one by one the squads came to the river, they walked in, deeper and deeper, till the waters closed over their heads, and they were gone forever, gone to feed the crocodiles which already roared and snarled over their prey adown the stream of Gunja. No one to lead, none to carry, each going as if alive and yet somehow dead. This ghastly procession to the river, 1,000 paces distant, so completed the horrible sense of fear that desperate terror possessed the great army, and they fled, leaving behind all things, and soon only a few faithful soldiers were left in sight. These remained with their commander and his officers of staff, ready to share with him the death which they expected would be meted out to all who remained. The women also did not all flee. Then spoke Rai Ernan, saying, Did I not tell thee to depart ere I punished thee? Wilt thou now go? Behold thine army in flight, its rout shall not cease. For thousands shall nevermore see Saldees, because they will perish by the wayside, yet not a few shall reach their homes. But thou shalt nevermore go home, neither thee nor thy women. But they will not stay in my land nor their own, but in a strange country. That haughty, but now humbled soldier, my father, bent on one knee before the Rai and said, Mighty Rai, what wouldst thou with innocent women? Thou saidst my warriors were guilty, I admit it, nor accept myself. But these my women, they have harmed no man. Thy words lead me to believe that justice is thy ruling principle. Thine acts do likewise, for when thou mightest have struck us every one, thou didst no more than make example of a few guilty ones. I implore thee then, have mercy on my women, perchance on my officers also. On thy officers, yes, they are faithful unto thee, though they expect but death as their reward. Bid them depart with what still bides of thine army. They are unused to caring for the needs of the body, wherefore they will of a surety all perish, except I save them. Having power, I will use it mercifully. None shall perish by the wayside, not one shall hunger, neither thirst, nor suffer any sickness. O Jehovah, all the way home, nor lose his way, though none shall have to eat any food all the way. And about them shall wild beasts rave, and though not one have a weapon, no animal shall harm him. For the Spirit of Jehovah shall go with them and be their shelter and their safeguard. Yea, more also shall he do, for he will enter into their souls, so that they that are warriors shall be henceforth his prophets, and shall uplift their people, and make of their name one which shall go down unto all ages. A famous race of educated men shall they be, and astrologers, telling of God by his works of heaven. Yet shall a further day come, some 6,000 years hence, when the men of Chaldea shall again try to prevail over my people, and again shall fail, even as now. But thou shalt long have been with thy fathers, asleep from a second life, and safe in the name whereby I work ere this second attempt. Callest thou innocent women who voluntarily came in all the insolence of supposed power and invincibility to murder my people? Innocent, they who came to see the rapine of my cities and to revel in the sufferings of my people? Innocent? Nay, not so. Wherefore I shall retain with thee these wives and these maidens. Behold, I have said thou shalt not go hence, neither these women yet a while, but thou shalt never go again from this land. I will put thee in a prison which has neither bars nor gratings nor any wall, yet thou canst not hope to leave it. Dost thou mean that we are all to die, Zorai? Asked my father in a low voice. Not so, Zoastika. Thinkest thou I condemn murder, yet would myself do it needlessly? No. Having said that thou canst not leave Suern, neither is it possible for thee thereafter, though neither bolt nor bar hindereth, nor any man watcheth or keepeth thee. It was piteous to see the partings between those who were to go and those who must stay. But then such are the fortunes of war, and the weak must obey the strong. I had rejoiced in our fancied strength, nor cared who fell by it. Power, aye, power. I think, after all, that I felt a grim satisfaction in beholding thee. Power, my God, work so swift destruction. The princess said these last words, musingly, apparently lost to her surroundings, as she sat with clenched hands, admiration depicted on her beautiful face and her glorious blue eyes with their faraway look, but oh, so heartless, so cruel, after all. Queenly in figure, commanding in personality, beautiful, wonderfully beautiful, the world now as then would call the Princess Lolix. Indeed, she bore a most startling likeness to thine own fair American women. But these are not like her, really. She, lioness-like, sided ever with the triumph power. But the real American maiden, sympathetic, true as steel, graceful as a bird, sweet as a rose just blown, like Lolix in these three last traits, but ceasing to parallel her further, for she of today clings to her father, her brother, her lover, come sunshine, come storm, success or adversity, faithful unto death, such have their reward. I'm going to go on now to page 122. Before we go on, I would like to make one call regarding this which we have read. Beloved Lord Lanto, beloved El Morya, beloved Lanello, beloved world teachers Jesus and Kuthumi, and beloved Lord Maitreya, I ask now, subjecting this my request to the will of God, that those who receive this instruction and these readings might have open to them the Akashic records of these events that took place, that they might know and understand by experiencing and being present at the scene what is the true power, wisdom, and love of the sacred fire of the Divine Mother upraised in the body temple. That this light and this sacred fire may repel all enemies of the light and the people of God in this day and age is our prayer. But we know, O God, that if it is to be so, those who desire it must seek and find it by that path of individual self-mastery, and the raising up of the Christ, as Jesus said, whereby all men would be drawn unto him and unto those who would likewise raise it up. Almighty God, by this power restored in the earth unto those who are the called, may wars cease, and may there return a true golden age of peace. For upon this power of God do we rest our hope and faith and confidence, and not upon the promises of an enemy who has proven himself a liar and a murderer from the beginning. O God, we ask for our deliverance in this age, as we are helpless before these weapons of war. May thy light increase in us as we see the great need to intensify that light, that we might provide in this community and in these mountain fastnesses even a stronghold of light to deter all harm to the light bearers of earth. May thy will be done in this matter, O God, and may thy seeking servants who desire the experience of visiting this record so have it. And I also pray that all that which is described may be given to them individually and specifically according to the will of God, that they might truly be edified and enlightened by actually experiencing these glyphs of Atlantis and the then world. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother, I accept it done this hour in full power. I think this is one of the great dramatic chapters of this book, and it is astoundingly authentic as I experienced the Akashic records while reading it the first time. I was truly transported to that scene. And of course, we are aided by the good work of the amanuensis, who tells us in the beginning that in many of these situations he had to compose the sentences that clothe the thought forms and the concepts given to him by Phylos. So whether these are the exact words of Phylos or the clothing of Phylos's ideas and thought transfers to him, the description enables us to enter the scene. And that is the point of the book, of course, that we must go back to Atlantis. We must go back 12,000 years, because what we conclude from these experiences may shape the rest of our lives and be the key to our victory. So it is an example of a true son of the solitude, having the power of God, and yet, as it is described here, it is not he that is doing this. He calls to the I am that I am, the same mighty I am presence to whom you call. And he says, O God, O Yehovah, do thou this thing for thy servant. He is in a right relationship to God, acknowledging himself as the instrument and God as the doer. I think sometimes we think that there are some secrets that we must know in order to wield such powers, and we must go in search of some occult adept who is going to sit us down and show us techniques for releasing the sacred fire. But the truth of the matter is that God works through his servants who bear love in their hearts, whose prayers are wise and for wisdom and for mercy, and who will never call for the abuse of power, even in dealing with the malintent of enemies. So I can tell you that someone may look at you and decide that you are an initiate or an adept, but the reality is that being the instrument of such happenings depends on one's relationship to God, one's love for God, and one's service to the light, one's uncompromising service to the light. Being very studious in the details of the instruction of the master under whom one has apprenticed. We should not neglect the details of teaching given to us in the dictations. If you have the idea that teachings are repetitive or repeated, indeed they are, because until the pupils have learned the lessons, the teachings are repeated. So, rather than saying to oneself, I have heard all of this before, one should flush with embarrassment that the master has the necessity of repeating the instruction. I felt that Ratnasambhava gave us a very profound reason to maintain God harmony, come what may. I felt the detail of his instruction and concern and his explanation of the limits whereby we limit ourselves to having access to the presence of cosmic beings to deliver us in all ways, should show us what an enormous price, an enormous daily price we pay for inharmony. Every line of the clock defines a certain type of discord. Jealousy is discord. Density is discord. Disobedience is discord. Resentment, revenge, all these vibrations, these are the subtleties of discord. But if at least people can keep their harmony in communications with one another and in attitudes toward one another, and harmony, of course, is God consciousness. So harmony means keeping a positive attitude, an uplifting attitude, a forgiving attitude, a charitable attitude, a tolerant attitude. Keeping and holding Mother Mary's immaculate concept for one another. If there is any area in which I feel students, I won't say fail, but perhaps depart from the straight and narrow way, it is this, that they can go out from a dictation which so clearly sets forth the keys and the truth and the path, and resume and take up again, like you go out and get your coat in the cloakroom, you take up the garments of your old human consciousness and get into the same old momentums. I think that is the most dangerous thing that we can see in our movement, the greatest threat to whether or not we shall have the continuity of the Master's sponsorship. It is pernicious. It is pernicious. And people say that some people don't know when they're being discordant or out of sorts or throwing energy or getting angry or having fights. I cannot understand how someone who is in earnest Chila would not know this. I monitor myself. I hear my voice tones. I know when I am not in the best place and when I could be doing better. And I also know the causes. I know that if I let myself get too stressed, or I don't eat the right things, or I don't sleep correctly, or I push myself too hard, then I can have very little energy to go on, and so I could become short, I could become impatient, and so forth. I know these things, I observe them, I watch them, and the moment I see them happening, I become silent, I go within, and I seek to rectify the situation at all levels. There is no way to achieve this without the self-monitoring process. There is no way to achieve this without deliberation. In other words, you deliberate in your heart. You take counsel with yourself before you speak. You recognize that to whomever you are speaking, this person is a precious soul. They desire God, they seek God, they need help. They are here because they want the path. And the only way to help them is to uplift them, uphold them, and give them a teaching that is practical and support them in it and pray for them. I feel if this community can conquer the interchanges between people and truly have love for one another as Jesus has loved us, that we will see two big booms happening. We'll see a tremendous increase in membership because love and harmony and comfort attract. And we will see a tremendous increase of cosmic beings that are able to work through us and help us through the very problems that are causing us to be out of sorts and agitated, and so forth. So you see, why do we take 5 steps forward and 2 steps backward? By this thoughtless misuse of the tongue, the mouth, the throat chakra, being it's like the cannon for the desire body, which gets all riled up and angry. And out come the cannonballs through the mouth, and then there's that karma you've made when you've balanced so much karma by such great service. You are valiant, you are courageous, you are self-sacrificing, you will do anything. You know, people will just give all their hearts and souls to the cause and the masters, and then they will get into these situations and make for themselves that karma again. And I assure you that by your labor of love and by your service and your presence and all the good that you do, you could have greater mastery, greater adeptship, greater ability to send forth light or be the instrument of God's wielding his power to the benefit of the entire planet. If you would be faithful to the situation of harmony, strength, and all the wisdom you can call forth in interchanges with people. I think each of us should solemnly, at this period when we are seeking dispensations from the karmic board, take a look at ourselves and say, what are my interpersonal relationships with people? How do I behave toward this person, that person, and the next one? You know, one of the things we do when people are not well and are having physical problems, the first thing we ask them to do is to write down everything that they have put in their mouths each day for a week. So we find out, what are you eating and how is it affecting you? What we have found out is most people are not even conscious of what they eat. And they begin realizing how many cups of coffee they're drinking, or how much of this they eat, or how much of that they eat. And they look at it on paper, and it's almost self-evident why they are having problems in the body. So if people are unconscious of what they're putting into their mouth, are they unconscious of what is coming out of their mouths? And if so, why not keep a notebook and keep track of oneself and have the positive and negative pages, and keep a little record where you are grateful you've had a positive interchange with someone, you've helped someone, you've given them support, you've brought out the best in them, they went away with hope where they came to you with fear and sorrow. That's great. You should note those, because when the force tries to condemn us and tell us we're terrible people because we had an argument today, we should also remember that we've comforted a lot of people and we've done a lot of good. So if you know the times that you've helped people, and then you see the situations where you wish to God these words had never passed out of your mouth, and you can see the look in a person's eyes when they are hurt, when they are crestfallen because they could not bear what you have said, write this down so that you cannot just toss it out of the way and forget it and not be accountable. It's there on paper. You know what day you said it and what time of day. And then the key is to ask yourself, what was bothering me? Why did I do that? Why didn't I have the presence of God and the presence of mind? Was I suffering from something physical? Was I suffering from an emotional problem, a psychological problem? Was I worried? Was I out of sorts because somebody else had just spoken to me that way? If you look at the causes, you'll become the master of your life. If you look at the effects and condemn yourself, you will just keep doing the same thing. But by the grace of God, all human habits can be corrected. And when you decide that this habit of the misuse of the throat chakra can be overcome, you will overcome it. You know, it is like an addiction. Some people feel almost smug about the fact that they don't smoke, they don't drink, they don't take drugs, they've overcome all these habits, and yet they have the habit of the misuse of the spoken word, as I've described it. And that habit is more than a habit, it is an addiction. And it is the addiction to a certain way of using the energy of the solar plexus and releasing it through the throat chakra, many times for effect, many times to manipulate or control people, just as the baby screaming in his crib is controlling his mother and learns to control her if he can make her respond to the screaming. People control people with their voices and what they say and how they say it. Giving put-downs, giving subtle criticisms, that subtle disparagement that makes people walk away feeling terrible, but they don't even know why because it was so subtle what you said to them. So an addiction is not easy to overcome, as all of us know. But you can go to the altar and you can say to Jesus and to beloved El Morya, I want to purify my throat chakra and my solar plexus, because they go hand in hand. What's going on in the solar plexus will eventually become the spoken word. And you can ask God to help you, and you can vow to make every effort to be vigilant, to watch, to make your list, to write it down, to see how you're interacting with people. And you can tell God you're going to overcome this, but you need His help, you need the reinforcement of His angels. You want to be El Morya's good Chela, and here he is, the Lord of the first ray, the master of the spoken word, in the lineage of God Mercury, and what attainment he could give you if you had God control and God harmony of that throat chakra and desire body. Think of what Morya could give you. Think of it. I mean, here the great master of the first ray. Here he has sponsored us, and here we are still misusing his ray in the throat chakra in this community. And of course there's gossip, the worst of all things under the sun. But I suggest that you go about this systematically as though your life depended on it, because I believe that our life as a community depends on this. And do you know, I was thinking about Jonah as I was coming in today and as I was going to sleep last night, meditating upon his relationship with God and how he felt that familiarity, that he could be angry with God and not obey him. And Morya pointed out to me that most of the people on earth, if they could get a hold of God and talk to him, and God could talk to them, would tell him off. And tell him that they don't like one whit how he's running things down here. It's like the person that was commenting on the San Francisco earthquake and the burdens that were on the mayor at that time, and all they were trying to do to accomplish those burdens. And someone in defense of the mayor said, this is not the mayor's earthquake, this is God's earthquake. And I mean, I've talked with countless people, I can't even remember how many in my life, who are angry at God because he allows children to be starved, and he does this, and he does that, and he does the next thing. And it's their excuse for not worshiping God, their excuse for not going to church, because God is not a just God. Look at all these things that he allows to happen to people. And of course that's because they are not taught the law of karma, and that the law is there for us. So Morya explained to me that the reason that people are not allowed to communicate with God on this planet is that they have this common problem in many cases, aside from the servitors of light who've come to help the people. But just about everyone has abused the privilege of walking and talking with his God, walking and talking with Maitreya in the garden. That's how twin flames were at the ancient mystery school. They were tutored personally by Maitreya. And they knew him, And they spoke with him face to face. And so when the privilege was abused and people argued with God, disobeyed him, and were contemptuous of him and treated him in this familiar manner, they were put in a realm and in a place of density where they could not talk with God. And they could not hear the voice of God talking to them. So then you have the parables in the New Testament, especially the one regarding the heir. There's the Lord of the vineyard, and he has all kinds of trouble with those who are running his vineyard. And they kill the supervisor, and he sends more supervisors and they get killed. I'm not specific on the story at this time, but finally in the end he says, well, I will send my son, and they will not kill him. They will listen to him and they will obey him, but they kill the son too. And so it's the parallel teaching to Jesus being crucified when God sends his son into the world. And so Morya explained that as people deal with one another, it counts as if they are dealing with God. So as you treat your brother, as you treat your sister, your employer, your employee, all your relationships, as you deal with people, Jesus said, inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Now he was giving us that not just as an interesting statement. He was declaring to us the law of karma. Take the least of all people you know. That one, how you treat that one, is counted as being how you would treat Jesus Christ, the Ascended Master, if he stood before you. So if you continue to treat people without respect, without love, without honor, you postpone the day of ever meeting Jesus Christ and talking to him. Because God will not come, he will not send his ascended masters to you, because you will make a frightful karma. You become familiar with them, and then you start treating them the same way you treat any person for whom you have no respect. Now, I've seen this happen in this century in the Ascended Master movements. There was a very key person in New York who had the capacity, the wealth to sponsor the Summit Lighthouse in the beginning. And this person not only had disdain for and contempt of Mark Prophet, but she had the same for El Morya. I had often heard about this woman, about how she had this magnificent sanctuary in New York where Mark Prophet was invited to speak, and it was her sanctuary, so she introduced him. And she knew very well that Mark was a messenger and that he gave dictations. But when she introduced him, she said, Mr. Prophet will now give his impressions of the Ascended Masters. But that wasn't the worst of the situation, but it showed her pride. Mark was a very humble man. He wasn't from high society. He didn't have the polish that she had, or the wealth, or the clothes. He bought his suits at Sears and Roebuck, and $19 suits, and that's the way it was. He did with what he had, and it didn't matter because the light shone through him. So when I went stumping in the East Coast, I decided to go and visit this woman because I was passing through the town she was in, and she played a key role in the I Am movement, in the Bridge to Freedom, and in the Summit Lighthouse. So I visited her in her mansion, and she showed me the room where Godfrey and Lotus had slept, the place where she had hired photographers for them to be photographed. The very photograph of Godfrey, which is at the rear, that is used in sanctuaries, was photographed in her home. And so in the course of being there and visiting with her, she opened up to me and she told me a scene that took place in her life. And she talked about going to the Shasta conference, where the I Am movement would have its summer conferences. And she spoke about driving there and driving back. And Morya had come to her to ask her to perform a certain service that she did not want to do. And I think he'd come to her on 2 or 3 occasions, almost pleading with her to do this service that he needed to have done at the time. And she said on each occasion, she said no, she would not do it. And she said the last time he came to her was when she was driving, either to or from this conference. And she described how Morya left her, and I can't even find the words to repeat what she said. But it was with a certain finality and a certain expression of the blue ray, whereby she knew that she was never going to see him again because of what she had said to him. She spoke to him in the familiarity of contempt. And she told me, this is, like 30 years later, she's telling me this story, that Morya had never contacted her again. The law would not allow it. I was aghast and breathless to think that someone could have such pride as to not receive the Master and help him in what he was trying to do for America. So it truly saddened me, but it brings home the point of how people treat God and the Masters when they feel they're in a position of power. She had plenty of money, so in this world she didn't need the Master. She had the money to do his whatever he wanted done, with not even missing the money. She had position, she had prestige, and so in her worldly sense of who she was, this person of great importance, she didn't have to listen to the Master. She didn't have to do him a favor. So you can see why Jesus said it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. So I am telling you that many of you are students of long standing and of many years. And I know that you will receive the Holy Spirit when, as Jesus prayed to God, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my Redeemer. That is the great Psalm of David. It is such a profound prayer. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. You need to grade yourself. Your teacher is your Holy Christ self. And you must be forthright and honest and direct in this exercise of keeping a record. And you will know when what you have said or meditated in your heart is acceptable or not acceptable unto God. And believe me, you can arrive at the place in your life because Jesus, in acknowledging your effort and your accomplishment, places his sacred fire in your heart and the Holy Spirit comes into your temple, that you can overcome and put behind you forever the sharp word, the put down, and all the psychological innuendos that go with it and cause you to do that. Because that's how your parents dealt with you, or that's how your father treated you, or so forth and so on. When you master your speech, what you say, and when what you give with what you say is given in love, and when the meditations of your heart means how you think about people. If you mentally criticize them, well, you would probably size up and mentally criticize Morya if he walked in with one end of his turban hanging down and not put up right because he'd been scurrying around the cosmos to get his work done. So this is the sign of the full moon in Capricorn in July with the sun in Cancer. And if any CCJ momentums are going to come up, they're going to come up right now on the full moon. And usually when people have it, they express it. Thought, word, deed, feeling. I say this because I don't think there's one person here who could look at the Rai Ernan and not say, I would like to be like that master. I would like to be able to be in this world and do good and have the power to do good and have the power to challenge evil. And the fact of the matter is that you're not as far as you think from such an attainment. But as long as this misuse of the throat chakra and the desire body, not to mention thought and feeling, but correcting the words is the most important because that's the heaviest karma. It's a physical karma and it's injurious. And if you can control your words, it means you're controlling your solar plexus and your emotions. And it follows that you can also control your thoughts and your feelings toward people. And you must. But you are only as far from that attainment as you are in the situation of not overcoming what I've just described. That's the only thing that stands between you and adeptship. Because you have the greatest power that has ever been known. You have the science of the spoken word. A single decree out of that decree book, with you in command of your harmony and in God control, a single decree spoken once can turn back the tide of evil in your life. We repeat the decrees because we ourselves need the decrees for the healing of ourselves, for the transmutation, for the balancing of karma, and for coming into God mastery. And we shouldn't defeat our decrees by eating the wrong foods that cause the body to become so unbalanced that the emotions now are unbalanced as well. And the mind can't think, and we are in no way masters of ourselves in any of the four lower bodies. That's another way that we strive to serve and then we undo it by what we put in our mouths. It seems to be that in Western civilization, the mouth is the least controlled thing we have. What comes out of it, what goes into it. I mean, it's really important to be able to put your lips together and seal them, and just to be able to resolve, you will not speak, and give that so-and-so a piece of your mind. And just be still. And think whether or not a more opportune time will come to give loving support and instruction or suggestion and so forth. So I think that I have said what I have to say on this subject. I hope you will take it very seriously, because I think this absence of God control and God harmony is what is going to make or break. I mean, the absence of it is going to break us, and the victory over it is going to make us. I mean, some of you have such a tremendous decree momentum and power in your auras that you don't realize you can literally move mountains with it if you had that mastery. So, at a certain day and date in your life, you've got to come to the place that Godfrey himself came to when he was Guy Ballard. He turned on his human creation and he said, I'm not going to let it control me any longer. And he decided he wanted God, his mastery, and the ability to help people with greater power. He wanted that more than he wanted to be able to continually express in the human vein. After the narration of Lolix, Menax meets with Zalem in the palace conservatory. Zalem, he began, I hardly know why I call thee this night, why I waited not for a time. And yet I do know, too. I had a mission to confer upon someone fitted to perform it. There are others more experienced, yet I choose to give it to thee. Thou knowest what it is. Very evident to me was it that this was not what actuated the Astika in his choice, and that it was not for this that he had asked me into the conservatory. He had relapsed into silence, which he presently broke by asking, Hast thou ever heard that my wife gave me a son, and that both wife and son are taken by death? I, one son and a daughter, praise unto Inkle, I have her yet. But my son, the pride of my life, is gone unto Navazamin, the destiny of all mortality. My son, O my son, he sobbed. When his emotion had somewhat subsided, he resumed, Zalem, when I saw thee, at thy first speech with our beloved Rai 4 years ago, was it not? I was astonished at thy likeness to my dead boy, and I loved thee then, Zalem. Many a time have I gone to the Zioquithlan to note thee at work in thy studies. Always have the summonses thou hast received at diverse times to attend at this Estikithlan had for thee their prompting motive sight of thee. Yes, sight of thee, lad, sight of thee, he murmured softly, gently, stroking my curls the while. Few days have passed that I have not at some time seen thee, either personally or by name. Yes, I have gone at night and stood by the window, that I might gladden my heart with the sound of thy voice as thou hast sat reading to thy mother. I have watched thee and been proud of thee, Zalem, for in every way thou hast seemed as my own. Thy triumphs in study have made joyful my days, as has also the skill with which thou hast performed governmental missions, for thou wert as my son. Then come and live here, lad, for I want thee near me in this mine old age. Together will we float down the stream of life, thou and I. Perchance I go first, out across the great ocean of eternity. Then will I await thee in the dim land of dreams, where is no more parting, neither pain nor sorrow. Come, Zalem, come. To this tender appeal I replied, Menax, I have often wondered during the years of my abode in Kaiful, what meant thy favors to me. Thou hast ever been more kind to me than any other, yet have ever been reserved and distant, yea, more so than others who could not care overmuch what befell me. Now all is plain. I have looked on thee with affection and loving reverence, and treasured thy kindnesses, and acted according to thy few words of advice. Yea, Menax, we will together go hand in hand to the shadowy land of departed souls, thou for me, or I for thee, waiting the other's coming, whichsoever the harvester of souls shall first garner. We arose and tenderly embraced each other. As we parted our clasp, I beheld the only child of the prince, enframed in clustering vines that twined caressingly around her lovely form. As I looked upon her, I thought of that other girl, the Saldu, to whose story I had so recently listened. Nearly the same age, neither of them more than a year my junior, but so widely different from each other as types of womanly beauty. It is difficult to describe a person in whom the deepest interest of the heart is centered, and the greater this feeling, the more difficult will be the portraiture. At least it is so in my case. The reader is aware how the brown-haired, blue-eyed, queenly girl of faraway Sald appeared, how delicate her fair complexion, how high-strung and sensitive her nature, yet withal, how cruel. But how can I picture her whom I loved, her with whom the hope of a chance meeting, even at a distance, made a great part of the pleasure I felt in going to the palace of Menax? She whom I had loved and enshrined within my heart nearly as many years as I had resided in Kaiful. How can I describe her? If the Princess Lolix was on the threshold of womanhood, so was this fair one, the Princess Anzime. Slight, delicate, womanly, the daughter of a long line of patrician ancestry, my senior and superior in the ranks of study at the Zioquithlan, if my junior in years. I loved her, yet carefully concealed the fact. Each of my friends who reads this will know what I feel when I avow unwillingness to describe Anzime, and bid each to place in this Poseid life frame the picture of his own best loved one. Each heart recalled a different name, but all sang Annie Laurie. Prince Menax caught sight of his daughter at nearly the same moment as I did, and a look of mild surprise overspread his face at her presence, when he had supposed the Zanatithlan deserted. Seeing this expression, the Rainu came forward and kissing her father said, My father, have I intruded? I heard thee on this, This youth entered, but knew not that thou didst desire privacy, so kept my seat and continued my reading. Nay, my pet, thou hast no need of excuse. I am indeed rather glad that thou art here. But what, may I ask, wert thou reading? It will not be well for thee to study too hard, and this, I suspect, was or is thy meaning when thy word is reading. With a sweet smile dancing over her face and lighting her gray eyes, she replied, Thou wouldst make an excellent reader of the hidden mind. I was indeed studying, but the end justifies the labor. Whosoever shall acquire a deep knowledge of the science of medicine shall be in a position to relieve even those in the agonies of mortal pain, and to cure those less gravely afflicted. Is it not a work for Inkel, then, as well as for his children, and is it not such an act done for the least of these, something done also for him? 2 girls, Lolix of Sald and Anzime of Poseid. A wide continent separated their 2 countries, but a yet greater distance was between the daughters of the 2 lands. Lolix, with no sympathy for those in pain, no sorrow for those in mortal agony, Anzime at the very antipodes of such traits of character. For a full minute there was silence while Menax looked at the noble-hearted, dainty speaker. Then, clasping my hands with his right and those of Anzime with his left, he said, My child, unto thee I give a brother, one whom I deem worthy to be such. Zalem, unto thee I give a sister, more precious than rubies. And unto thee, Inkel, my God, all the song of praise which fills my breast for thy blessings to me. Here he dropped the hands that had touched together for the first time and lifted his own to heaven. How the touch of that little hand thrilled me ere it was withdrawn. Was I worthy of all this love? No sin yet stained my fair name, and I felt at that moment entirely deserving. If ever it blotted my record, sin was yet to come, but with disquiet I thought of the strange prophecy on that night of long ago. For an instant only this feeling possessed me, and then it fled. I was given to the habit of analyzing men and motives. It was a second nature, so to speak, to consider every question in every possible aspect. So even now I was querying myself as to the meaning of this latest experience. I knew that for Menax, who had so winningly asked me to be his son, I entertained the most profound respect and affection. My life would not have appeared to me too great a price to pay if for it I could have bestowed commensurate benefit on him. And I loved life too. There was nothing morbid about my nature, unless exceeding love for my friends be a sign of morbidness. I dwelt a little upon what my adoption meant socially and politically. Thou needest not be told what it must have been to my ambition, thus to be placed in so high a niche as I would thenceforth occupy in Atlan estimation as the legal son of a high counselor who by marriage was the brother of the Rye. All this time, while considering the situation, I was reserving as a choice sensation the pleasure of examining what was the kind of love I felt for her who was my sister, by adoption only, it is true, but who herself, the pet of inner circles and the adored of the people of Kai Fu, would appear before the world as my sister the moment Rai Wallen should officially approve his brother's course. Ought I to feel pleasure or vexation? I looked at her whom I had dreamed of as my wife, in case Inkel, within his goodness, should see fit to grant me exaltation to high places. Could I hope to realize the dream after this unexpected turn of fortune? If I had come to my high place by a different manner, then I could have hoped for the hand of Anzime. But now, my great fortune seemed like an apple of Sodom, bitterness to my mouth, for I was her brother legally, if not by consanguineous ties. There was a chance that things were not so dark as they seemed, since such adoptions among the lower classes were frequently, yet did not act as a bar to marriage. So thus again the sun came from behind the clouds. The characteristic most marked in the appearance of the girl before me was the simplicity of her attire. That evening her glory of brown tresses was caught in a loose unbraided fall at the back of her shapely head by a plain golden clasp. A long flowing robe clothed her in slender girlish form. No costume could be more artistically, tastefully simple than this colorless, diaphanous fabric tinged just enough with blue to seem pearly white. Shoulder tips of pure carmine indicated the wearer's royalty. Her dress was gathered at her throat by a pin made of a golden bar whereon flashed large rubies, grouped about a center of pearls and emeralds, the whole heightening the color of her cheeks so as to make her seem some lovely human rosebud. Rich as it was quiet, the attire added nothing to the girl's own sweetly dignified loveliness. The pearls, emblem of her rank as a Zyokenu, the emeralds, mark of her not yet having attained political voice, the rubies, gems of royalty, worn only by the Rai or one of his near relatives. Wallen's own sister was Anzime's mother and the wife of Menax. Posei derived her greatness from her educational superiority, a greatness which recognized no sex in its learned ballot holders. But if Atlantis owed all things to knowledge, it was none the less true that Atol's people of ability would not have been what they were had it not been for their wives, the sisters and the daughters, and more than all, the mothers of our proud land. Our grand social fabric was founded on and built by the efforts of sons and daughters who, for centuries, had respected the lessons inculcated by fond, true, patriotic mothers. Next to that paid to his creator was the homage which a Poseida accorded to woman. We loved our Rai and the Astiki. We respected them as much as ever rulers in this world have been respected. But we honored our women more, and Rai and prince, sovereign and subject, were proud to acknowledge the holy influence which made all our glorious land of freedom one great home. America, thou art beloved by me, even as was Poseid. Foremost among nations art thou so because of woman and Christ. Thou wilt keep in the van because of them, and eclipse all the world beside when the happy karmic day shall have arrived, which places woman not below, not above, but side by side of man on the rock of esoteric Christian education. The granite of knowledge and faith, which withstands the winds and storms of ignorance. Built on such foundation, the national house shall not fall. Built on other, great shall be the fall of it. Here is wisdom. Myriad serpents are in a man. In thee, keep them. Now ye are slaves. Be ye masters instead. But alas, this way is narrow. Few will to find it. I ask you to stand for our benediction. Beloved, mighty I am presence from the heart of God and the great central sun, we all say together with one voice, here am I, Lord, send me. 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 I call to Cyclopeia for vision. I call to the great divine director for divine direction. I call for practicality, frugality, and the cosmic honor flame. I call for practical sons and daughters of God to rise up, take the light and the torch of the Goddess of Liberty, and run with it. I pray for angels to guide us and teach us. I pray for courage. I pray for faith in hours of doubt and fear. And I pray that all sons and daughters of God will understand that when God has given so much, he leaves us in a vacuum because it is our turn to fill that vacuum with our light, our faith, our hope, our charity. Thus, in moments when we have the ball, O God, let us run with it. Let us realize we must be doers, for you have been a doer unto us for so long. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother, I seal this teaching in the name of all cosmic teachers who have ever given to this planet and all other planetary homes and to our life streams the way, the truth, and the life. Amen. Let us sing to our Morya in gratitude. (192). Please shout your fiats to Morya.
Guard the flow, let the word go forth lovingly. In the flame, glowing flame, in the harmony flame, in the light, radiant light, in God harmony light, in the stillness of God, in the quivering flame, angel wings all abide with thee, blessed God of harmony. In the light, starry light, cosmic light, unending, I would be in the sea of thy holy bliss suspending. In the light, virgin light, in the womb of cosmos, I'll abide in thee, blessed God, harmony. Flow, flow, harmony flow. Flow, flow, harmony flow. Sing, sing, harmony sing. God the flow, let the word go forth lovingly. Blaze, blaze, harmony blaze. Raise, raise, harmony raise. Sing, sing, harmony sing. God the flow, let the word go forth lovingly. Shiva come, by cosmic dance we aspire. Shiva come, whirling action with sacred fire. Whirling dance, sacred dance, stamping on in harmony. God the flow, let the word go forth lovingly. Shiva come,